All right, so let's get it going. This is lab, and of course I've got the whiteboard wrong there. We're off to just a fantastic start here. This is lab 13, not lab 11. Delays and dynamics review. So, we'll talk to the marketing staff about that one. That's me, by the way. And we'll kind of get this going here. Okay, let's see how we do. So, yeah, we're going to talk about delays today. And all things delays. I got a Tim McCullough saying he loves his PCM42. Bravo. Yeah, it's a fantastic unit. Klaus is saying I still use my 501. That's for a mic. Okay. Oh, never mind. All right, here we go. So let's start off. I mean, we're going to talk really broad for a little bit, and then we'll kind of get down in the weeds with it here a little bit. So let's talk about some delay types. And, not for nothing, man. I mean, in digital consoles, we got more delay options than we ever dreamt possible, right? I mean, we can do so many things with delays because we have so many of them available to us on the console now, I mean, I'll just use the obvious argument, you couldn't go out on a tour previous to digital and say, hey, sound company, I need 16 PCM42s. They would have just laughed at you. Said, not for the money you're paying us. So, now with digital, obviously, you can have as much of this as you want, and the selection is just so rich for this kind of stuff. So it's really fun, and you can kind of really expand your thinking on how you use them and where you use them. So obviously, in terms of delay types, oops, I'm going a little bit out of order over there. System delays is, things like the lake and all the other things. We're not going to cover that today. This is strictly about, I call them creative delays, where we're using something to create color or excitement on an instrument or a voice. That's the kind of delay we're going to talk about today. And all the different types of delays in that situation are things like chorus, flanging, phasing, slap, echo, and repeats, tempo repeats is what I call them. Okay, so we're going to concentrate on all of that today. So let's see. Let's talk about some ratio ranges and definitions and stuff like that. The thing to keep in mind here is the time kind of dictates what kind of effect it is, right? So if you're working with a delay in the 1 to 2 millisecond range and you're blending it with a source, that is more often than not going to sound like flanging and phasing, kind of depending on how you use some of the other pieces of the delay. As we move up in time, if you get up to 10 to 60 milliseconds, and this isn't hard math here or hard rules here, this is just generalizations here. Then you're looking at chorusing effects, right? We're talking about chorusing, and again, how you add modulation and depth to it can affect the chorusing and all kinds of effects on the delay itself, on how it adds with that source. I'm sorry for being so froggy today. I just got back off my run, and I am so dry, I can't even tell you it was so hot here today. 60 to 150 milliseconds, we are generally going to consider that the slap times. Anything around those times is going to be that, give you that kind of effect. 150 milliseconds and greater is echoes and repeats, like music repeats, things like that. Okay, so those are just some broad kind of guidelines for what we're going to be talking about today. And of course, all of these are in play when they are blended with the source. And probably as good a time as any to talk about this. In digital, one of the beauties of digital, because we have all these delays at our disposal, we can kind of pick and choose whether we want to use them in parallel, right, where we're going to have a source and then we're going to add in a delay with it and create the effect, or if we want to insert it right on the channel, right? That's one of the beauties of digital. We got so much of it available to us. So a lot of times, if we're just depending on the kind of delay, whatever, we may just want to insert it right on the channel. I do this a lot with vocals. I'll just tell you right now, especially if I'm doing slap times or even shorter, like short times, something to just give a vocal a little bit of space. A lot of times I'll just insert it right on the channel, right on the channel itself, and blend it back. It probably won't take more than 15, 18, 20% of a slap on that vocal to make it sound right. And the beauty of that is now you can take that slapped vocal and then send it up to a reverb, send it up to another delay, whatever you want, and without having to create all this dual parallel bus structure. Now, if it's like a lead vocal where you might want to if the person's going to talk, obviously you're going to want to take that slap off. Well, on SXL, we have those little color switches along the bottom. You can program those to just simply turn the delay on and off if you want to do it. I actually had it set up on Petty where I had it that way, where I was inserting the slap on his vocal when he would talk. I would, bypass the delay when he was talking, and then as soon as I was ready for him to sing again, if the fader got over a certain position, it would re-engage the delay. So I was never really got lost with it. So it's something to consider when you're doing this: is do I need to insert it? Do I need to use it in parallel? And at risk of going down the rabbit hole so early here, one of the challenges we have in digital, especially if you're trying to do flanging and phasing, which are really short times, right? If I've got the source and I'm going to add a really short time back to it in my processor, the problem becomes if I use that in parallel, right, where I take my source out to an aux bus and back into the unit, well, that path alone may be longer than the 1 millisecond, right? So I've actually had a guy who emailed me about this very problem. He's going, I can't get it to flange. He goes, it's just, because the closer we get those two sources together, the deeper and grindier the flange is going to sound. And he was having trouble getting that, and it was because the path itself was creating about 1.5 milliseconds of delay, and then put the effect on it. It was 2.5, 3 milliseconds, whatever it was going to be. But he couldn't get it to flange, the way he wanted to do it. So that's where digital is a problem or a challenge with it sometimes. And in that situation, you might need to insert it on the channel just to get it to flange properly, or create a parallel path where you can align the sources first and then flange it and get it down to that 1 millisecond. You'll kind of see that today in some of the audio examples. So. Oh, Dennis was wondering about the chiclet buttons. Yeah, see, I'm going to start teaching you all the secret sauce, Dennis. You're going to like that, man. Scott, you got your hand up, buddy. Give it to me. I'll stop right there for a question.
Sorry, early question. But,
I would expect nothing less from you, brother. Come on, bring it.
I don't want to call you out or anything, but how are you getting all these, like the stuff that you're putting on here, like the ranges of definitions and that kind of stuff? Are you just years of experience, or are you pulling this from somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's experience and a combination of just, most delays of any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Any kind of comprehension will give you those controls, You'll see them today. Almost all of these have those kind of controls. The simpler the device, then you get down to just the really simple controls, which are probably just going to be delay and feedback. Maybe output gain, but probably not, So it's just a matter of how comprehensive the device is you're using. Might use any or all of those parameters, right? So I'm going to guess this is what you might be talking about here. So we have a delay time, a wet-dry blend, regeneration or feedback, modulation. We can put modulation on the delay signal, tone shape or color, which is hinting toward equalization, sync. We can even add saturation in the delays now to be able to create these kind of things, to get them to really stand out. So is that what you're hinting at, Scott?
More along the lines of how did you get the 1 to 2 and the 10 to 60 and the 60 to 150? Is that somewhere that I've missed on the console, or how did you get that?
It's not on the that information would not be on the console. That's just kind of general knowledge in terms of how you create those types of effects. They'll be in those time ranges.
Okay.
Right? Just to make the obvious example, if you had 2 milliseconds on something, that's not going to be a slap, that's not going to be an echo, that's not going to be a repeat. You're just going to hear it kind of grind it up and flange it together, right? So you'll hear it today. I've got audio examples of all of those times. So.
Well, thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's see here. So the next thing we want to talk about in terms of delays is we want to talk just a little bit of music theory here, right? Because we're talking about this in the context of music. How do we use these delays and make them musical, right? How do we make it? I'm sure we've all heard the show or the guy mixing that's putting delays on a lot of things, and you just kind of go, wow, man, I am getting seasick here, or it just feels really awkward, or can't find a spot for it. More often than not, that's a function of it not being in time with the music. The delay is kind of disrupting the groove of the music a little bit. So we want to pay pretty good attention to this. And again, digital to the rescue here a little bit. You know, the ability to tap tempo on the console now it's so easy to do it and tap tempo for a whole range of delays at one time. You know, it's easy to kind of keep this in line, especially if you kind of know what you're doing musically here, right, in terms of music theory. So, you know, you want to learn to tap tempo. And, you know, kind of the secret sauce of tapping tempo, especially in digital where we have all of the synchronization capability in the delays themselves, is you just got to know what note to tap on, right? And kind of choose it accordingly. Do you want to tap on quarter notes? Do you want to tap on eighth notes? You might even want to tap on 16th notes. Doesn't matter what it is, but all the delays will shift accordingly depending on what you tap, all right? So you can tap in any one of those structures if you want to do it. Obviously, a whole note lasts for a whole measure. So this requires a little bit of knowledge on your part in terms of just music vocabulary. Would I be able to identify a measure of a song? That's one thing for sure, because you're going to tap, you know, within one measure or just between notes to kind of figure out what the actual tempos or the actual note structure should be. But the thing to take with it also is don't be concerned with time signature. This really has nothing to do with time signature, right? You don't have to, we're not trying to create something that's going to fit within an odd time signature necessarily here, okay? All right, and as far as tapping out of time, which there are definitely guys that do this. I think reggae is probably the best example of this, where you watch guys that are tapping there. A lot of times they will just tap to the style of delay or the spin-off that they want to create of a vocal or a keyboard or a marimba or whatever it's going to be, a timbale maybe. You know, they'll just tap how they want that delay to sound. So it's not necessarily in tempo, but it's going to follow the tap, right? Which is actually pretty cool. And, you know, it drives something that we don't do on S6L today. We've actually been challenged to do it with the plugin architecture, but we're looking for a way to do it where guys want to be able to tap asymmetrically on different delays. Like they want to take buttons on the console and aim them at this delay on the vocal, aim another button at the delay on the drum kit, aim another button at the delay on whatever it is, the cowbell or whatever, and they want to be able to tap and just spin things out into the air with it, which is really cool. If you watch somebody who's really good at doing this, it's amazing to watch them do it. So we're working on that at S6L land. All right, so from here, let's go to converting tempo to time. This is very simple, but it can give you a lot of insight into how to use delays and keep it musical, right? How to keep them out of the way, so to speak, or actually not hide them, but actually feature them and do it in a musical way. So BPM, right? Beats per minute, right? That's what we're looking at here. So what we're looking to discern here is the distance in between, the distance in milliseconds between a pair of beats, right? Whether it's a quarter note, an eighth note, a 16th note, a dotted 16th note, whatever it's going to be, we're trying to discern the difference, the distance between those two beats in time. And we're just going to use a little formula to do it, right? So if we were tapping quarter notes like you see here in the picture, right, and we were going to tap at 120 beats per minute, well, 60 seconds is a minute, 60 seconds per 120 beats, 60 over 120. That means that it's 500 milliseconds, a half a second between quarter notes at that tempo, all right? So that gives you a nice guide to kind of go, okay, wow, all right, I see what can fit in there now. And then it's just a matter of making it mathematically land where you want it to land. Do I want it to land on the quarter note? Do I want it to land on the eighth note? Well, the eighth note would be half of that, right? 250 milliseconds. So, you know, it just goes right on down the line. Now, obviously, tapping can take care of a lot of this, and using the auto calculators on the delays can take care of a lot of this. But previous to us having all that capability, we kind of had to do this manually, but it's good knowledge to have in your mind, because what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to create delay times that actually fit into the pocket of a song, right? So, you know, if I create a delay on a vocal or something like that, and it lands on the quarter notes every time it comes back into the console, it's going to be in time with the song. It's not going to sound awkward. And it might even hide a little bit behind the other things that are on that same quarter note. But now that we know they're aligned, If we want to reveal that delay a little more, we can push or pull it a few milliseconds. We could say, well, let's make it push the beat a little bit. Excuse me. So I'm going to subtract 10 milliseconds from my time and get it to happen just earlier than the quarter note. Or I'm going to make it groove a little bit. I'm going to make it lag and pull the beat a little bit. So I'm going to just push it 10 milliseconds later than the quarter note, and it's just going to happen a little bit behind it and reveal it, right? So you have that kind of power at your disposal once you get it in time, once you can do this really in time with the song. The other thing it allows you to do, it kind of gives you you can start thinking with some purpose now of, well, how much pre-delay should I put in a reverb? Well, now you can kind of just mathematically take it down and go, okay, well, it looks like mathematically, 60 milliseconds will fit great into my song, right? It'll keep things in time. I won't get it all out of whack. Guys, if your mics are not muted, please mute them. I'll mute you up here in a second if you need me to, but please mute your mics to keep the background noise down. So reverbs, same sort of thing, where we can have reverb times that don't hang over the bar line, that don't hang longer than a measure. Maybe we even want them to hang shorter than a measure. I even do this on my short reverb times where I will mathematically try to get it to structure a little bit. And, you take care of, as we've talked about many, many times, right? Mixing is the culmination of a million small details. These are just more details to take care of that add more clarity and reason to your mixes, right? Is that making sense to you guys? Another one you can deal with when you know this kind of delay time is you can add, kind of gate release times now, right? Like if you're gating some noise or you're gating whatever you want it to do, and let's use the typical example where you might be gating some reverb or gating some pink noise or something like that on a snare drum, right? Well, you could make it where that reverb ends at the beginning of the 1 and 3. 2 open, end 3. 4 open, end 1, right? That probably the first song I always think about that I've heard where I think, wow, they've got that really structured there, almost to the point of being stiff, is Smugglers Blues. You ever heard that song? I think by Glenn Frey. I mean, it's just got this incredible, just gated reverb that is just almost, like I said, almost to the point of being mechanical. But, you can tell that they've used that kind of concept there, right? You could do the same sort of thing with compression a little bit if you wanted to do it. Like if you were creating effects with it, now you've got a mathematical reason to create an attack time, maybe even a release time, depending on what you're doing, right? So the math is good. The math is good to have at your disposal and to try to get these things all to work. Pre-digital, and I still do this to some degree just to kind of keep a handle on it, you can create your own calculator. I mean, it's just so easy to do. You just take an Excel spreadsheet, right? This is an actual screenshot of one that I had ages ago where you put the song titles in, create a field that's got the tempo of the song, right? And then, if you're going to tap at quarters, you got to recognize what you're tapping at. If you're going to tap quarters, you're going to put in that quarter note time here, and then you're going to just create a bunch of calculator fields from it, right? So if our tempo is 170, that would be 60 over 170, which creates that quarter note time of 353 milliseconds. And then everything after that is a division or a multiple of it, right? A half note would be twice that. A whole note would be 4 times that. An eighth note would be half that. A dotted note, in case you guys don't know music theory, is the length of a note plus half again its length. So a quarter note plus an eighth note would be a dotted quarter note, right? So you can pick up all these times and get them ready for you. Just have them at your disposal in a spreadsheet. This is really easy to do. And this is the way I used to always do it years before we had digital. So this was always a big help. Any questions there?
How are you calculating the tempo to begin with?
I'm sorry?
How are you calculating the tempo to begin with?
In that situation, I either knew it, I got it from the drummer, or I had a metronome with me and would just tap it out and figure it out on the metronome. It would show me it on the metronome. I think at that point I was using a little Roland I think it was called Dr. Beat. that had a tap tempo on it, and it would just reveal the tap tempo or the tempo to you. Cool.
Running down the.
Yeah, there you go. You got to have that one. All right. So let's before we get into dynamics, obviously we're going to do some of these. We're going to go through these delays here. So let me get on to these. Let's do a little sound check here. All right, so I've just got a bunch of different delay types here. Let me just check and see if I got this working the way I think I got it working. Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to use pink noise and a little bit of impulse to do this. We'll get to the point where I actually use this on instruments and voices. That's to come later. That's a lab I'm putting together where we pull all of these things that we've been talking about together. But given that we're kind of in a lab setting here, let's kind of do it geeky and listen to it on noise, because it's very revealing with pink noise what's actually happening here. All right, so let me, yeah, I'll just stay here for a second. So let me make sure you guys can hear this okay. Tell me if the volume is okay here. So it's going to be pink noise. We're running in parallel here. So pink noise, and then we're going to add the chorus to it, okay? Pink noise. And then chorus. So I'll get the unit out in front of me. Okay, so as you can see there, it's about 10 milliseconds of delay. It's got a little bit of modulation on it, off to the right there. You guys can see my cursor, good, yeah. So a little bit of modulation, not a terrible amount of depth, and this would be actually pretty smooth in terms of chorus on something, right? So 10 milliseconds, about 10%, 8-10% of feedback on it, and that's kind of the sound you'd get. Okay, let's go to another one here. And this is just a little stomp pedal, right? That does same sort of thing. Now keep in mind, one of the things you always want to keep in mind here, especially in digital, is if you're running in parallel, the effect wants to be 100%. Don't do any blending on that return, right? Because remember that you're going to have a dry sound, and that return is always going to be later than the original sound. So it's going to comb if you don't do that. That needs to be 100% wet, no dry signal in it, and you're just going to add and blend those two things together, right? Okay? All right, so let's listen to this guy, and I think you'll start to hear some of the character differences in some of these. Okay, so obviously that's got a huge, long, slow, deep sweep in it, right? I mean, that would be great on things like keyboard pads, things like that, you know, to really kind of sparkle them up a little bit, right? But again, you know, it's just, this is an emulation of a guitar pedal, or actually a Leslie pedal, it looks like that we're using there. Let's go on to, let's get this guy in there. So this,
Yep.
somebody have a question there?
Yep.
Yeah, mute your mics, please. Mute your mics if you haven't. All right, so this is
I never heard back from you, so I didn't. Let me see.
I emailed you and Terrence
Did you really? Because I'm.
last Wednesday, wasn't it?
Let's see.
Hang on, I got to mute a mic here.
Anyway,
Okay, give me just a second. I'll look. And
All right, let's try that. So this is one of the McDSP delays, the EC300 thing. There's tons of great presets in this, and you'll hear the difference here. Now, I know this is probably a little boring to listen to. It's certainly not the most exciting thing to listen to. but you get some sense of what it does. And as we move on to flangers now, you'll hear the difference between chorus and flanging. Remember that chorus is up at 10 milliseconds or above to create that kind of effect. So let's get to flanging now. Go here. And we'll go here. We'll go back up to our regular guy. You can tell that's got a huge, deep effect in it, right? A lot of modulation in it. Think Van Halen, definitely. Now, like I said, you know, the key to flanging is that the effect signal's got to be really close to that original signal, right? For it to really work, you want those things really rubbing together and creating that kind of effect, right? So here's just the effect with no dry signal in it. And you know, I think on flanging and phasing, for that matter, in particular, even chorus works this way. You know, you can get away, obviously, with just hearing the chorus. You don't necessarily have to add the sound back to it to get the effect of it, right? So you could use it all completely wet there. Matter of fact, I mean, I'll give you some hacks here. This is a great trick to use in metal and other stuff. I used it forever in the Def Leppard days. Because it was used all over their records, etc., where you would have a rhythm guitar panned out to one side, and then a flanged version of that out to the other side, and it would just create this beautiful width on the guitar. And if it collapsed into mono, then you had guitar and the flange guitar adding together. They didn't get in each other's way in mono, right? So non-flange guitar on one side, fully flanged guitar on the other side, and it worked a charm. You can use that one. You guys want to do metal and stuff, it's great for getting big guitars wide and kind of getting them out of the center. So let's look at our friend Mr. E300 here for the flange. So obviously that movement you're hearing on it is just modulation on the delay return, right? It's at that 1 millisecond that, just like we hear in comb filtering, right, is going to create that kind of flange thing, and then we're just going to modulate that signal up and down at any speed or depth that we want to do it to kind of make it give us the right sound, or, you know, get it in the way, whatever we want to do with it, okay? So here we go. Let's go to phasing now. This is an interesting one. That's just the delay return. Here's with the source. Check out our other device here. So maybe you're asking yourself, okay, well, what makes the difference between flanging and phasing? I don't really hear that much difference in them. What is the difference? In phasing, what is going on is that, I think I want to do this. Let's go back to flanger first. Flanger first, right? We have a modulation sine wave that's happening, right? And that is happening at one frequency. That frequency is going to stay static with the flanger because it's just a modulation. In phase shifting, that frequency is shifting a little bit. We actually get modulation in terms of depth, and then we get a movement in terms of frequency as well. We can pick that frequency going up and down in frequency. Think about it, it's actually very similar in terms of, like, if you were walking around listening to the interaction in a PA, right? We've all done that. We're kind of walking toward the PA system, and you can hear that big flange effect of the reflection coming off the floor. Well, why does it sound like the frequency is changing there? It's because the wavelength is changing as we get closer or farther from the components that are out of time, right? That's similar actually to what's happening in phasing, where we're getting not only depth in that sine wave, but we're also getting a variation in the sine wave itself. Its frequency is modulating a little bit as well. Okay, is that making sense to everybody there? Tim says the EC300 is much sweeter. Yeah, it is. I think so as well. And, you know, I'll just tell you guys that one of the coolest things about these delays that are coming in plugins, whether it's McDSP or the Avid plugin or Waves, I don't care what it is, they've created so many presets in these things that are so good. I mean, you know, it's just a dream to be able to kind of go through and check these things out. And so many of them are really good. So don't be afraid of them. But in terms of the sweetness of it, we're going to explore that in a minute when we get to slaps and echoes and repeats, because what's happening there is actually some frequency shaping of the delay return. Okay, they're actually taking it upon themselves to frequency shape that a little bit. And it is one of the secrets to doing this as well, and having it work musically, is to try to kind of shape that delay return into something really interesting sounding, especially for rock and pop music, you know. Okay, so those are the short times. We'll stop there just for a second. Everybody okay with that? Got any questions? Need me to drill down and cover anything there? I think I might even, do I have some wave stuff here? Let me see. I might even have some wave stuff here too. Yeah, I do. Let's take a look at this guy. Take a listen to this guy. I don't have much in my waves catalog for delays and stuff, funny enough. I don't typically use it for that kind of stuff. But. So this is the phaser from Waves. Obviously a very complex frequency shift there that they've built into it. Let's check out their flanger. Here, yeah. All right, this is the same device, just flanging. It's actually very similar to their... Okay. All right. Let's see. Where do we go from here? Are we ready to start doing some echoes and stuff? Let's do that. All right. So obviously we move up in times, right? We get out to that 60 through 110 millisecond range. We're going to be talking about slaps. So we're going to listen to an impulse today. This little impulse guy, and then we'll get here and listen to some slaps. All right. So check this out. No, that's not right. Yeah, here we go. Turn this up a little bit. All right. So as you can see, that's really tight to that that source, right? If we take out the source. Oops, I can't do that. This way, if I take out the source, you can kind of hear it just sounds like, flutter on its own, but then when we measure or put it up against the source, it sounds more like echo. Notice that, again, the return is 100% wet, but if I was going to insert this on the vocal, like it would probably be down to that kind of, honestly, 15, 18, 20%. Usually more than that, and it gets just a little too echoey for my taste. But the cool thing about it is, again, once you push it up into the auxes, into your reverbs or anything else like that, it's like taking that slapped vocal and adding the effect to it. It makes it much easier to do it. No low pass filter on this, meaning the time, or I mean the delay itself is not being manipulated frequency wise. Maybe we'll take a look at that here. Let's see, I'll put it up like this maybe. Let's see if I can get that up in there. You should be going there. Oh, we got to check that with pink noise. All right, stand by. Let's do this. All right. All right, so you can really, all you want to look at here is magnitude. Right? Don't worry about the phase trace for this. We're just looking at the shape, the frequency shape of the return, and you can see it's full frequency there. Right? There's no shaping going on to it. Okay, so let's take a look, listen to a couple of different ones of those. So this is real tape. And you know, the reason this sounds a little different is because real tape won't go down below about 90 milliseconds. So this is a little longer time. I won't even guarantee that this is in time, but you kind of hear it here. And the cool thing about this is you can, you know, with tape delay, you can create a tape saturation effect on the return itself, right? And if we just take a look at that in FFT as well, this one actually looks pretty straightforward. Play along. Hang on, I got a smart issue. There it comes. Yeah, so there you can see there's just a little bit of high frequency roll off on the return of that. This would have a little bit of compression characteristic too because of it being tape compression style thing. And the harder you drive this, like I think one of the secrets of using this is actually taking the input gain and turning it almost all the way up until you can really drive the tape a little bit and get it to harmonically plume there a little bit and shape it. Okay, you'll see that here on this next one. Let's go to tape echo now, and you can see this is really shaped, right? So not much top end on it. This is very much like, you know, a tape echo that you would hear on guitar, etc. And it's kind of why, you know, again, this is kind of one of the secrets of using delays really, really effectively. Like the first things that pop into my mind are like if you're going to put delay on a Rhodes or, you know, even a guitar and a vocal. You know, a lot of times you don't really want all that extended top end on it because it gets confusing to the ear, right? You're just trying to create a sense of space. And by tone shaping that thing down in the top end, you'll actually get it to kind of come up and sit and hang a little better. And without it getting in the way of your mix, you'll get the same effect of it. So let's listen to this with the impulse now. Yeah, and you can hear that, right? Just really focus in on the first beat and the frequency response, and then the subsequent beats and their frequency responses, and you can hear the difference in them. You hearing that? But the initial impulse has got all the top end on it, and the returns don't. Here's just the returns. Oops, sorry, I didn't do that. That's just the return. With the return. Without the source. Is that making sense to you guys? Okay, let's carry on. Let's see, what else have I got for that particular one? Do I have more? No, that's it there. Okay, so we'll move on to an echo from there. And I want you to just note something here, right? So right now I've just got that impulse and the return of this echo device in bypass. Can you hear the flanging on that? Can you hear the comb filter on it? This is just on its own. And then the effects return, even though it's in bypass, right? That's comb filtered there. Those two are not adding together. I hope you can hear that. All right, so let's go to the first device. And here's where we can, you know, as we start to get these times out, we could do this in slap as well. I just didn't have the stereo devices. But now you can go to stereo, right? So this is more echo. Now watch what happens here if we just change the time. We're going to go to, we're on quarter note delays here, but we're going to go to a dotted quarter note on one side of it. I think you guys should still be having this in stereo. I hope so. Okay, so that's mathematically in time with your song right now. It's not going to get in the way, but it gets it out wide and left. And you just quarter note plus a dotted quarter note. Remember that dotted quarter is a quarter plus an eighth note. Making sense to you? Yeah. Okay, let's go to our next device. Again, this is the EC300. You can hear a little bit of shifting going on this guy. And on the EC300, you have the choice of making it kind of mono or stereo or ping-pongy. You can do that just as the switch of the flip of a switch. So I'm going to take it to dual now, which is stereo. And again, these are all mathematically right. You know, these are going to fit in great. So think about what would happen now if you have this return coming back with this movement, and you send that up to a reverb now. Now you get all kinds of beautiful spatial element to your reverb now, right? Okay, last one here. And that's this one. Oh no, I'm sorry, that is my last one there because I don't have any actual echo style delays in waves in my system right now. All right, so let's go to repeats now. And these are the ones that I hear. If I hear people handle one element of this poorly a lot, it's this one. It's handling things that are actually repeats. Let's get out of that. All right, so this is just, again, quarter notes. Or no, I'm sorry, these are half notes. But you can hear they would be right in time with that original impulse, right? And then again, if we want to space them out, you know, just dot one side of it if you want to. And you can do anything you want to do here. I mean, we can make this as crazy as you want. But, you know, keep in mind, it stays mathematically right? Let me just go out to that. That's just a half note on one side now. Let's go to a whole note on one side. How about this? Or dot that. All of it stays right in time with that initial impulse, right? You're just picking what division, what musical division you're going to use there, right? Okay, let's go take a look at the EC300 here. You can hear that's tremendously vocal or tone shaped, right? Let's go back to single here. So you can hear it's same time now on both sides, but you know all the top ends rolled off of it. Or we go to the dual. Are you guys hearing that okay? All right. Let's take a look at that in FFT. Yeah, that's, you can't see it there. So that's the frequency response of that return in the EC300. You can tell they got all the top end rolled off of that, which is just what it sounds like. Let's see what the... So that's this guy. And you can tell here there's a little bit of high frequency roll off in the device itself, which we could make much more extreme if we want to do it here. And kind of shape it up to be the same sort of thing. You can kind of see the slope rate of that filter in the delay there, can't you? What do you think? Yeah, Tom Brandon says high frequency roll off just like the early days of digital. Yeah, I would even go as far as to say this probably sounds a little better than the early days of digital, where you were working at 4-bit or 8-bit delays. Those were kind of interesting times. I remember having one of the very first Delta Labs and experiencing. I mean, that was a good one too. Where you just. I think I had a DL2 where you were thinking, "Wow, I've never heard a delay sound this good." We were so used to tape delay at that point. So pretty neat. Is this answering questions for you guys? Actually, Scott's got his hand up. I'm just going to go straight to him since he's got his hand up. Go, buddy.
When you're doing this, when you're auditioning, what are you using? That little popping sound, is that on the console?
It is not. That is just a polarity checker that I use as an impulse. It's a full range impulse. Matter of fact, I'll pull it down so you can see it here.
It'd be cool if it was on the console somehow. You could put that in kind of like a pink or a tone, so you could audition a lot of these, because I've never sat and really auditioned much of this stuff, but the way you're doing it really gives the idea of what it's doing before you. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Hence my reason for doing it that way, Scott. So this is a just a polarity thumper. I'll try to hold it up here where you can see it. This is made by, I can't remember who it's made by. I'm sorry. But it's a couple $100 unit, PC90 emitter. So this has an XLR output on it. So you can have that thump coming in. And you can actually hear it out of here. There's a little speaker here for it too. So what this allows you to do, obviously there's a transmitter, which is this guy, and there's a receiver that has either red light, green light, telling you polarity, right? So one of the coolest things you can do with this device that I've found is, because this will output an impulse, and on the device you can pick whether it's pin 2 or pin 3 hot that you're pushing out. Just put this right in front of a microphone, plug in your receiver on the other end, and you can check the polarity of your entire microphone path to the console, right? Actually works just fantastic for that, right? So really, really, I don't want to overblow it here. Probably the best investment I ever made in my life was this. However many years ago I got this. I used to have one made by another company, but it finally gave up the ghost, and I found this one. And this one's a really cool thing because the receiver kind of slides into this, and you can transport it as one unit. But I also use this to phase check or to affirm my phase check when I'm doing sub alignment to the PA, because this is a full range impulse, even though you may not be hearing it all here. But it's fantastic for checking low frequency impulse between your main PA and your subs as well. So I will try to find, somebody's asking if I can put up pics. I will do you one better. I will try to find someone that sells this device and put a link up in the Google Drive. Okay? Now I know Wayne is going to go, guys, you aren't going to see that for weeks right now, because he's saying he's going to put it in there. He ain't going to put it in there for weeks. But I will try to get it in there this week, I promise.
I would never say that.
Oh.
So that's what you guys are using, your system techs are using to pop the PA and stuff?
It's what I use. I always have a channel coming into my console right next to my pink noise channel that is that thumper. We call it thumper. And the other thing that it's really cool about, think about what you're hearing here with echoes, right? It is fantastic for being able to analyze interaction in your PA, right? And listen to how much echo your coverage is creating in the room, because it'll be like this. And if you are creating echo in the space from a ceiling or a wall or something, it will identify it for you immediately. You'll be able to hear it immediately and then make adjustments in your PA and hear it go away immediately if you need to do it. I think I saw Matt McQuaid come in here. He'll back me up on this, because we used it all the time on Petty. I would use it to check all kinds of things, especially interaction between two PAs where, you know, you want to hear whether they're actually arriving in time. I mean, one way to do it is certainly check it with a phase trace, but it's a fantastic check to be able to make sure that two things are coming in time. If you want to align your back line to your front fill, this is a fantastic device to use. Just plug it into the monitor console, have him send it out the monitors, listen to it against your front fill. You know, you'll know right away whether they're even remotely in time or not. Yeah.
Is that a piece that causes that like chirp thing that you always hear?
No, that's a different device. That's made by, I think that's the tone plug by Eddie Chiletti. I think he made these it's just an XLR that you power with phantom power, and it has a little switch on the XLR that you can call, 100 hertz, 500 hertz, 1K tone, 10K tone, or chirp. You can just browse through all of them. Another really, really handy device to have in. That chirp is really good for analyzing reverb in a space, right? Just chirp your PA and you'll hear what the reverb is going to feel like on a given day. That's why I used it to demonstrate all the reverb stuff that we were doing earlier in the earlier labs, right?
Can you put that in the link too?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if he makes them anymore, but I will certainly find out. I could just reach out to Eddie and go, "Are you still making these things, dude? What's going on?"
I've always heard like guys like Vic and stuff do it when I was out with like Lincoln Park and stuff, but knew what it was. Never gotten a direct answer.
Yeah, the thumper, man, that's revealed more problems, more errors in my alignments than anything I could ever do. I actually, I don't want to talk out of school here, but I'll just say there was this sound company once that was the house sound company at this big venue in Los Angeles. And I came in to do a show there, and they didn't really want me to mess with the system alignment at all. They were just like, "No, we've got this exactly how we want it. We don't want you to mess with it." So I did about 2 or 3 songs of sound check, and I stopped. I went, "Guys, you're kidding me, right? I mean, you're kidding me." And they were like, "No, what's the problem?" I just pulled that into the console and turned it on, and it sounded like somebody was making popcorn in the building. I was like, "Guys, I mean, we got to be able to do better than this. I mean, it's a pretty controlled space here." And sure enough, I mean, I'm sure there's a good moral to the story here. Something had gotten shifted in their processing. It was all lake processing, and something had gotten out of whack. And there was a bunch of times that had shifted off, and they just took it that it was right. I was like, "Guys, you got to be kidding! This can't be right." And once they went in and fixed it, then it was like, "Yeah, there we go." Okay, I mean, it was as good as they were saying it was going to be initially, but I mean, it revealed it immediately, So yeah, handy device to have for sure. All right, give me some questions. What do you got for me? Anything that's throwing you off here? Anything where you think, I don't know. What? Are you sure? Because the thing we're going to do with this, hopefully, if I can get this other kind of lab built in the future, it's kind of a monster to build. So I'm going to have to ask you guys for some patience on it. But is it that you start using all of these devices kind of together, right? Where, you can have a delay. Maybe I insert a distortion device on the delay itself. Then I'm taking and sending those up to a reverb to get, to kind of build these spatial, really cool sounds. It works just amazing. And like I said, the beauty of digital here is that we have so much flexibility in routing and adding devices that we can do these things. And if you do it well, I mean, it can sound absolutely amazing. I mean, it's such a great tool to have at our disposal now. So that's my take on it. I don't want to go back to analog with this. I'm sorry, not for live shows in the studio. Okay, yeah, we can talk about that all day. But I like having the flexibility in digital just to call up more delays if I need them without having to call the sound company and say, "Hey, FedEx me out 10 more PCM42s, will you?" You follow me there? So yeah, the devices are cool.
The downside of
Anybody else? Questions, comments?
but it's still mandatory.
Yeah, Robert, the company that makes that tone plug also makes the exact same thing as a pink noise generator too, besides a frequency selectable plug.
They do. It's called noise plug, I believe, right? Yeah, that's honestly, that was the pink noise you were hearing here. I was using the noise plug to do that pink noise. That was not the onboard generator. It was that device. So.
Yeah, those things are great to have in your toolbox when you're
Oh.
trying to trace out stuff.
Totally. Because, the cool part of those things is they work as a 48 volt checker as well, because they won't work without 48 volt. So, you can just plug one in and go, I don't have 48. Come on. It's not happening here. Because you'll see the light. There's a little red LED in the back of the XLR to tell you whether you got phantom or not, too. So, yeah, they're just money devices,
So you said slap gets misused the most or something along those lines. Can you explain yourself on that?
No, actually, I think what I was saying was repeats get misused the most.
Repeats, okay.
Yeah, and for my ear, when I go hear somebody misuse those a lot of times, it's not in time with the song, It's like it's either terribly lagged or terribly pushing the groove a little bit. It's like, wow, is there any thought in that, or did they just whip on a long delay? And to some degree, you got to back off and go, okay, it's art. If that's the way you want it, okay. But it didn't seem like it was serving the song very well if it's that out of time, So
Gotcha. Thank you.
that's why I think the math is important. And again, it's where digital helps us a little bit, because all of those delay processors have the note calculators in play, like the one you see on screen right now, right? So if you can get it in time, you can very easily, choose the note. Because remember that, you can choose different note structure on, like I could put 4 of those delays on one channel and have each one of them be a different note structure and just pick which one I'm going to use at any time. Or I could have snapshot changing the note selection and just make it where if I ever want it, like if maybe the song's being played a little faster one night or whatever, just make it where I just tap it faster now, and then all the delays shift right back into place, right? So that part of it's just, I'm sorry, but there's no comparison operationally between digital and analog there. Digital kicks analog's ass there in terms of being able to keep those things in play and use lots of processing there if you want to do it, right? So it's awesome. All right, that's it for today. Thank you guys for showing. Great turnout today, man. Thank you, all of you guys, for coming. I hope this lived up to the billing. I hope you got out of this what I was hoping you were going to get out of it. So, all right, guys, have a great week. I will see you next time. And thanks a ton for showing up. We'll see you around. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Robert.